If I was giving you a tour of my garden 3 years ago, I would have left this part out. And when my neighbors would ask, what is that supposed to be over there? I would come up with a really fast, really confident answer that I was making a wildflower garden. Problem was, the whole time I felt like I was lying, because what I really thought was I spent the last 3 years making a complete and utter disaster of my front yard. I had started this project with one goal in mind. Well, two. The first goal was to make a space that was really good for the critters. The second was to make it so I didn't have to mow this hill over here. Pretty quickly, this project turned into what I thought was a complete disaster. And it was a part of the yard that I was really regretting I had done as the front. But now, this part of the garden is the best looking and the lowest maintenance of the entire property. So Dan and I are going to be giving you a tour of this garden and everything that has worked and a few things that haven't. But if you're interested in finding out what is the highest maintenance part of our garden, be sure to subscribe down below because we'll be putting out that video pretty soon.
So after 3 years, the plants started to bulk up and they really started to mesh together. And that's really nice for a couple of reasons. The first is it looks good. As the plants have gotten bigger, they're filling in spaces and the garden looks complete. It doesn't look like we're still trying to figure out what to plant in which places. Plants themselves have gone where they want to, and so they're coming up and they're thriving in the places where they're going to do the best. Even if that wasn't where maybe we originally intended to have them, they're moving and migrating around. They're spreading either by runners or maybe by seed. They're going in the places they want to. The other really great thing about how the plants have been coming together is that they are shading out the weeds. Even in the beginning of the spring, when everything is just starting to emerge out of winter, sure, there are some weeds, but very quickly the plants that we want, the plants that we intended to be here, outpace those weeds, and so we don't have to do any weeding in this garden anymore. And not only are there plants that we intended to be here, but some of the native wildflowers have also arrived into the garden beds. Things like spotted St. John's wort or fleabane, and they work well, they look nice, and so we're leaving them in amongst everything as well. Just because we didn't intend it to be here doesn't mean it needs to be edited out, especially if they're native plants and they have found a home here. We're going to encourage them to stick around and continue to spread. Some of the things that have really filled in without us asking them to are things like the penstemon or beard's tongue, the yellow daisies that we have, the goldenrod, the milkweed. I really like the orange butterfly weed that we have, and that has been spreading itself around, popping up in places where we didn't think we had originally planted it. There's things like the mountain mint, and we have a couple of types of mountain mint. Actually, we have 3 types of mountain mint. They're popping up in places where maybe we didn't expect them, and it's great, especially one of the mountain mint, which has these like purple bracts, and it's a biennial, so it will pop up, but we don't necessarily know where that's going to be. And so it's really fun as you're walking through the garden and you start spotting some of those things kind of year after year. And violets make really good ground cover. And actually, to be honest, in some areas they've come in maybe a little too thickly and we might need to thin them out a bit, but still the fact that they are here and they can provide this ground cover just makes the gardening that much easier.
This is one of my favorite wildflowers to grow. It's called spotted jewelweed, and I let it come up absolutely everywhere. I have the typical orange variety, but I also got some seeds of the yellow flowering variety last year, so I'm letting them come up absolutely everywhere because I don't know which ones are the yellow ones, and I'm just hoping I got some. So like with any space, some things have thrived and some things have died out and fizzled out completely. I think at this point we don't have many of the grasses left that we planted in here, which I'm pretty sure is the vole's fault on that one. And we have other plants that have just popped up everywhere. So this is showy goldenrod right here, and you can see it's pretty much everywhere, and I love this plant. The bees love this plant, so I don't mind that it's all over the place. There's other little things that are tucked in little places that they've managed to hold on. Like there's a bright pink echinacea down here. There's also a little bit of coreopsis that's still hanging on. But one of the things that's survived especially really well right now is this yellow daisy that's everywhere in here. That self-seeds, it's an annual, and it seeds all over this garden, which I absolutely love. This time of year, it just looks like this yellow shining jewel.
And there's little pockets where the Shasta daisies are popping up. And the thing that's actually kind of surprising about that is because we get a lot of these tall plants, so you might worry about some of the smaller ones not being able to hold up to that. But especially when you're standing up above, since this is on a hill, when you'll look down and you'll see these clusters of the Shasta Davies, kind of like white pops kind of here and there.
So the self-seeding aspect of a lot of these perennials and the annuals that we've planted in here really kind of combats that kind of destruction that voles can bring to a garden in winter. Because when there's 3+ feet of snow on this space, there's no way I can tell what they're doing under there. But the plants are still just moving around. They're doing their own thing, you know, just let them do their thing, and they know far better what they're up to than I will ever know. When it comes to the pests that we deal with in this garden, voles are a major winter pest, but deer are one of those critters that like to chow down on this garden all year round. So every single thing that goes in here has to be something that survives the deer.
And even though we certainly will gravitate towards finding things that are labeled as deer resistant, the important thing to remember about that is resistant is not deer proof. Nothing is going to be deer proof. Deer they're going to try it first if they haven't before. And if they're hungry enough, they will go after anything because it's about survival for them.
Yeah, so we found with some plants like milkweed, I wouldn't have thought deer would eat milkweed, but they come out here every couple weeks and chew some of it back down to the ground. But milkweed, we have two varieties. We have the common variety, and that's the one that spreads by runners and it pops up everywhere. But in this garden, that is such a good thing because the deer would eat an entire clump if it was very close together. So I've got milkweed that's running all throughout this space. I've got two places where I planted it. And now it's kind of moving all through this bottom section and all through the top section up there. We also planted swamp milkweed because we found in our area the butterflies prefer that. So I've had to tuck it in little like secluded pockets where it's surrounded by a whole bunch of other plants because then it gives a little more protection from the deer. What's important to me is that if the deer try it, the plant rebounds from it. So there's something that happens right around the end of May, beginning of June. The deer come in and they eat back like half my perennials halfway. And it's almost like they're doing the pruning for me. So it gives it like staggered bloom times, and I didn't have to do anything to get that. The deer just came in and did it for me, which, you know, it kind of sounds annoying, but the plants are able to rebound and they're able to bloom. And that's something that if I wanted to get staggered bloom time, that's what I'd have to do anyway.
We have had to do some interventions related to the deer, and that's really focused on the roses that we have. So we have some traditional type roses, and the unfortunate thing is like they haven't really gotten a chance. The deer haven't given them a chance to like bulk up any, so any damage that they're doing is quite significant. We did take some chicken wire and we've made some kind of temporary cages just to try to give the roses a chance to get bigger and to bulk up.
I have found too, my mom gave me cuttings of a rose that my grandmother had grown at her house, and the deer don't seem to bother that either. And they also don't seem to bother it at her house, which is in eastern Pennsylvania, which we think we have deer problems. They have deer problems. So I guess there are some plants that the deer just aren't attracted to whatsoever. I have the same thing with hydrangeas. I have an oak leaf hydrangea that every single year the deer eat off all the new buds. So I never get any flowers, which is a good thing that I like the foliage. But there's a hydrangea right around the corner that they don't touch. And that one blooms on new wood, so they could chew on it if they wanted and it wouldn't make a difference. But of course that one they don't seem to care about. So we are sitting in front of and actually on top of the biggest mistake we made in this garden, which is I planted a hedge of oregano. And this is just the culinary oregano that you can get in 6-packs. And they look so teeny tiny when you get them in a 6-pack. And these things each grow to be about a 3-foot by 3-foot plant. But not only that, they seed around like crazy. So you have to keep up on making sure to cut them back so that they don't, after they flower, they don't go to seed. Well, last year I kept putting it off and then I forgot about it entirely, which is why we've ended up with the mess that we have.
We have oregano everywhere, not just the border, but it has spread everywhere and it's popping up everywhere.
In the lawn, in the flowers, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, and yeah, that's not ideal. It's not what we intended. So what are we gonna do about it then?
Well, you're going to rip it all out.
Well, what am I going to do about it?
I'm going to watch you rip it all out. So we're going to take out every single one of these, and then we already have a catmint hedge around the stairs going down to the driveway and along the driveway. So we're going to continue that all around this garden. The catmint behaves a lot better. It doesn't spread everywhere, and it's like the perfect height to frame in all these plants. And also we have a lot of white right in this section. So if you'll see right behind us, we have this big clump of mountain mint right here, and all this oregano blooms white. So it was very much just a small flowered white mass, and it really didn't have any definition to it. So I think putting in the blue catmint is going to look so much better in this area. I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned when it comes to gardening is that you're allowed to change things. Because I think I grew up doing a lot of vegetable gardening, and it's annuals, so you don't really have time to change things. They're just there and they die out with the first frost. But when it comes to perennials, I kind of went into this with the thought of like, if I plant stuff, it has to stay there forever. And that's not the case. If there's a plant I don't like, I can take it out. I can get rid of it. I can divide it, move it, whatever I feel like doing, compost it. You know, it doesn't matter. It's my garden, it's my space, and I can do that. And I think that's taken me a long time to realize. Like the other thing we're going to change in this garden, which is right down the way a bit. So in this section behind us, I really wanted to grow a lot of those really tiny alpine plants and cactuses. There's a native cactus to the northeast, which is the eastern prickly pear, and I wanted to have that somewhere in my yard. It was one of those things where I went to the plant center, found the plant, and I was like, I'll figure out a place to stick that, and then came home and realized I didn't actually have a good place to stick it. So I kind of just put it up here on the top of the yard, where it's the hottest, the sunniest, the driest. But all these plants are really small, and it's also the spot that's closest to the street, so you can't really see anything that's going on here.
The other things like the hens and chicks and that sort of thing, yeah, they are really, really low, and they look great when they flower, but with the hens and chicks, when they flower, then the hen then dies back, and you're just left with the chicks, and that cycle takes a long time. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we end up with in here is also a lot of weeds, because everything, unlike the rest of the garden behind us, where everything grows taller and shades out the weeds, we don't have that here because they don't do that. So this requires constant weeding, which means we don't do it.
So the goal with this area is, again, we're going to continue the catmint hedge all across this spot right behind me. And then we're going to take out all of the succulents and cactuses and everything that's back in here. And some of them will probably end up as edging in parts of the garden where we have space, maybe in the dahlia bed. I think some of the cactus will probably end up in that sort of situation. But we're also going to build some planters for the deck, which is south facing and probably the hottest place on the planet. But we're going to put these succulents and cactus up there, so it gives them a chance to grow in a weed-free environment and gives us a chance to actually look at them.
What we're going to do in this flower bed is put in a path. Now, you can see here we've already kind of designated where that path is going to be, and it's separating kind of the two halves of this garden. But we're going to formalize this a little bit, and we're going to put in gravel. And we're not going to do, it's not going to be fancy. The idea is that we just want a nice, simple gravel path that allows us to walk from the front in through the flowers and over to basically essentially into the dahlia bed across the way. It's also really nice because it takes us through these garden rooms that we have built out here.
A lot of things have changed in this space, and a lot of things are going to continue to change. But one thing that has really changed, and I noticed recently, is how the neighbors talk about it. Instead of asking me, so what are you doing there? Instead of doing that, they're actually telling me about their own garden plans and where they're going to plant things, what they have planted, and things that they want to do in the future on their property. Whether or not they do it, I don't know, but they're thinking about it. And for me, that is one of the reasons I wanted to put this out here in the front, because this neighborhood does not have a lot of gardens anywhere. There's a couple neighbors that garden, but for the most part, there's a lot of expanses of green lawn. And it turns out that I was right. Gardening is contagious in the best possible way, and our neighbors are now looking at this as a space that they want to have too, as opposed to a space where they're wondering what we're up to.
One of the key things about doing the gardening here and doing this kind of garden is really learning to trust the process and trust yourself and your vision and trust the plants. It might not look like what you think or what you want in the first couple months, but that's okay. Just stick with it. Trust that the plants are going to do their thing, and before you know it, you're not going to remember what it looked like beforehand, and you're going to be so happy with what it is you have. And thank you very much for joining us on this garden tour. We've got a few other videos coming up soon, so you want to make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can check those out. We're going to be talking about the highest maintenance part of our garden. We'll also do a tour of the dahlia bed now that that is getting into full swing with the dahlias and the other plants that we have there.
And I've decided that I'm going to do a little more in the front of the camera as opposed to only behind the camera. So I'll be back again now and then to show you some more parts of the garden that I'm really liking. So make sure you stay tuned and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time. You were supposed to say bye.
Bye.